Welcome to the Man Cave Podcast with Dan Casper.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to this episode of the Man Cave Podcast, brought to you by our good friends from Hy-Vee and Toyson Ford. Dan Casper here with you. Appreciate you tuning in to this episode of the podcast. A little housekeeping. Hey, don't forget, we got some swag. Shout out to Resonance Branding Company. Check out some of our swag that's available. You can get that link in the podcast description. All right, so when you're looking at like Spotify or Apple and you're looking at what this podcast is about, the link is right there at the bottom. So check it out. Also, if you got a few seconds, if you haven't done so already, if you have, hey, big thanks, tip of the cap to you all. But if you could take a few seconds, like on Spotify and Apple or wherever you listen to your podcast, if you have this option, to give us a 5-star rating and a positive review so others can find the podcast, that would be fantastic. So, all right, housekeeping's over with. What are we talking about on this episode of the podcast? Well, we're going to talk some Brewers coming up here. Fantastic start to the season, taking a little spring cleaning to the Mets there. 3-0, winning their first 3 games for the crew. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk a little NFL draft now that we are in April because, well, now with that tour about 3.5 weeks away, we're going to kick off our, I got to come up with a better name on this, but this is the best I could come up with, NFL draft player preview, possible player preview, whatever the heck we want to call it. Essentially what I'm doing is taking some players that have been commonly attached to the Packers, whether it's been national mock drafts or a player that's really popular amongst Packers fans, and kind of giving you a little bit of a scouting report, a little bit of a background on them. So in case they are, and these are just first-round possible picks, but in case they are the Packers pick, that way you get to know them or you already know a little bit about them. So that's going to be the second half of this episode. First up, we got to lead off talking some Brewers. Brewers doing a little spring cleaning and sweeping the Mets. 3 games to none. Pittsburgh, though, 4-0 too, so we can't even say the Brewers are number 1 in the division right now at this point in time, but nonetheless, 3-0. What stood out to you the most about this Brewers team, or what are some of your overreactions from this Brewers team from what you saw in the first 3 games? And we know it's just 3 games. We know it's just the first 3 games. There's 159 more of these things to go here. You're going to have a lot of ups and downs throughout the season, hopefully more ups than downs, but odds are you're going to have a few downs. The one, I mean, there's a few, but number one for me that really stood out, that I was excited to see, and I hope it's something we see throughout the season, and it's something that we have been talking about leading up to this season, that I personally hoped we would see more. I think a lot of Brewers fans were hoping to see more. It was my bold prediction that I thought we were going to be one of the top ones, that the Brewers were going to be one of the top teams in the entire majors to do this. Stolen bases. The Brewers in 3 games stole 8 bases. 4 of those came from Bryce Terang. Half the stolen bases came from Bryce Terang. The only other team that's up there with the Brewers are the Cleveland Guardians, who also have 8 stolen bases, but they played 1 extra game too. So at least initially, first impressions, it looks like if the Brewers get their runners on, they get the right runners on base, they're going to be aggressive on the base paths. That's what I wanted to see. One of my bold prediction for this Brewers team when Brandon and I did this, a week and a half ago, my bold prediction was that the Brewers would finish top 3 in all of Major League Baseball in stolen bases. I was really hoping that this was going to be a team that would utilize that speed that they have and be aggressive, stealing bases, moving runners around. And so far, just 3 games in, but so far, they've shown it. Bryce Terang, you want to throw that man in for having himself a weekend. You could go different points from this Brewers series. Freddie Peralta was a great start on opening day for him. 1 hit. The entire team just allowed 1 hit. You can throw in Rhys Hoskins. Rhys Hoskins is probably the guy that's getting a lot of the talk from this weekend. Hey, he backed it up with some of his play, but he's a dude that's not afraid to push the envelope and do a little trash talk or chitter chat against the other team. Christian Yelich was solid. Jackson Chourio got a lot of talk. Made some interesting lines, past making some plays in the outfield. But the dude racked up some hits. A solid debut, a good debut. So all of that, and yet Bryce Terang's probably, maybe some Brewers fans like, oh yeah, that guy had like 455 over the weekend. Dude had 4 stolen bases. This is a guy. We know about his defense. Bryce Terang made some good defensive plays over the weekend. We know about that man's defense. We saw it last year. But if the offense comes around for Bryce Terang, he's not going to hit 455 all season long. We know that. That's not going to happen. But if this is a guy that's going to hit like 270, 280 up there, and he's going to get on base, and you're going to be able to utilize his speed for stolen bases, huge win for the Crew. 5 hits over the weekend. 4 stolen bases. That ratio right there, sign me up. Sign me up every single time for that. So I hope, again, this is just 3 games, but I hope Bryce Terang is a dude that we're talking about that, we know what he brings to the table defensively. But if that offense is going to start to come around a little bit, and he's able to get on base, and he's able to take an extra base here and there, this changes the landscape of this offense. And overall, if this team's going to be more aggressive on the base pass and stealing those extra bases, getting an extra base, putting a guy in putting a runner in scoring position right away, changes the offense. But overall, just a fantastic weekend. Fantastic weekend. This team just feels like first impressions. But this team in the first 3 games seems like they're taking on the personality of their manager too, and Pat Murphy. We've gotten to know Pat Murphy obviously a little bit more this year because, now he's the skipper. He's been doing the media stuff. We got glimpses here and there of Pat Murphy as bench coach for Craig Counsell over the years. Seemed like a very well-respected guy within the organization. Players loved him. Once in a while we'd hear a really cool, funny story about Pat Murphy or a story that Pat Murphy told. Sometimes when you see him and he's in the dugout or he's arguing, he looks like a guy you don't want to get into an argument with at times. Seems like a high energy guy. And it just felt like, in just that incredibly small sample size, that this was a team that played with the personality of their manager. They were aggressive. Whether it was stealing bases, they were playing solid defense. They had a little bit of a swagger, maybe, to them. And I hope this is a glimpse of what this team is going to look like throughout the season. I hope this is what we see. I hope we continue to see an aggressive, team on the base pass. I hope, hey, if Rhys Hoskins is going to play that villain role, as long as he kind of backs it up, continues to back it up like he did offensively, go for it. Heck, even the Brewers social media account was having fun with it, for crying out loud. Kind of like subtweeting the Mets, going after the Mets. It was just fun to watch. It felt like this team was just going out there and playing baseball and just having the right energy. Is that a reflection on a manager? Very well could be. But this is a team that's, in the first 3 games, from what I watched, from what I listened to, it's like I could get on board with this style. I can get on board with this team. It was just a fun energy. It was a solid debut for a lot of guys like Jackson Cheerio and, Freddie Peralta as the new number one ace. Here's some nuggets. You want some nuggets with this Brewers team, with some of these players? How about some of this? Opening day, Brewers allowed just one hit in their 3-1 opening day victory. It marked just the fifth time in the expansion era that a team allowed just a single hit on opening day in a 9-inning game. Just the fifth time. That's it. Here's some other nuggets here for you. We've got that is the Brewers from their one hit on opening day. Brewers, this is from our good friend Dominic, who hosts the postgame show for the Brewers on the Brewers Radio Network. 11th one-hitter or less since Chris Hook took over as pitching coach in 2019. Most in Major League Baseball. And by the way, that's the fifth from Freddie Peralta. Opening day, going back to opening day, Jackson Cheerio. I was a little surprised when he was batting leadoff. I think because Pat Murphy was telling us that he was going to bat him towards the bottom of the lineup, and then the last couple of days he did. But how about this? Again, from our good friend Dominic. Since World War II, there has not been a player to make his Major League debut on opening day who batted first and all before his 21st birthday. The last player to start in their debut on opening day that's younger than Cheerio was some dude named Ken Griffey Jr. in 1989. Now, that's not to say Jackson's going to be Ken Griffey Jr., but a lot of firsts and a lot of history making. It was just, it honestly surprised me a little bit to see the team perform the way they performed. It just felt like a different style. Again, the word I'll keep going back to is energy. It just felt like a different type of energy with this team. I don't know what other way to describe it. And I hope it's something that, again, it continues throughout the season. We got a long, long season to go here. But man, that was a fun weekend here. And you had other guys, like it was different guys stepping up, or there was like a different storyline in every single game. Game one, you could say it was the pitchers allowing the one hit combined. You can throw in a little Jackson Cheerio for his debut. Rhys Hoskins, game two. In game one, the little drama with him and McNeil at second base. What does he do in game two? Home run, 4 RBIs, collects 3 total hits. Game three, you had Contreras going out there. Couple doubles. Christian Yelich had a solid weekend. And, as we mentioned, Bryce Terang. But it feels like to me that this is a team, and we hear it once in a while in sports. We see that team, they play with the personality of their coach. It felt like that with the Brewers this past weekend. But man, it was fun. And I hope we continue. We had some small ball going on. We had some great defensive play going out there. Will Salmon, who used to cover the Brewers for The Athletic, we had him on. I can't even tell you how many times we used to have him on. He covers the Mets now for The Athletic. So he had a front row seat to the series this weekend. And he posted up his latest piece from yesterday. The Mets said they'd be more athletic and better defensively. That didn't show up in the opening series. Instead, the Brewers, David Stern's old team, offered a masterclass on what that actually looks like. Masterclass. High praise. I love it, man. I love it. If this is the type of team that we are going to see throughout, here's a bold overreaction 3 games into it. But if this is the type of team that we're going to see, and we don't know how, Jacob Junis is going to get to start tomorrow. How is he going to look? You got Ross that's going to get started on Wednesday. So, we got pitchers we haven't seen quite yet. But if this is going to be a team that's going to play with this mindset, play with this aggressiveness, this is a team that I think is going to be pretty darn pesky throughout the whole season and could be a team that nobody's going to like to play. Just that kind of pesky team there. And I'm all about Rhys Hoskins playing the villain role. As long as he continues to contribute and he provides a little power in the middle of that lineup, go play that villain role. Just make sure you're still producing out there too. You know, when you look at Major League Baseball after now opening weekend, I know they're terming it opening week because, well, you got home openers and such over there. You know, even you go to MLB.com and they've got like, are these reactions or overreactions? They don't say a whole lot about the Brewers. They talked about the Mets and the Mets freaking out. But, you know, no credit to the Brew Crew over there. I mean, come on, guys. What are we doing? Give them a little shout out or something. There was a piece up on MLB.com, one opening weekend takeaway for each team. For the Brewers, this team can still win without Craig Counsell. There was a general sense that the Brewers were not going to compete this year after winning the NL Central in 2023, in part because they lost their manager to the division rival Cubs. They're now already 2 games up on said manager because of an extremely well-rounded series sweep of the Mets on the road. The best thing they had going was their defense, even with new addition Rhys Hoskins, who was terrific the whole weekend, even when he was in the middle of all sorts of drama, making a key sterling play. Yeah, he made a couple defensive plays. And remember, when the Brewers signed him, the one knock on him was his defense stunk. Well, he made some nice plays over the weekend. These are the defending division champs, you know. They played like it all weekend. Now let's see them continue to do this. Let's see them continue to do it against the Minnesota, Seattle. You got to go on the road. A big early 4-game road series next week against Cincinnati. And then Baltimore. You might be going up against your old pal Corbin. You know, not to look too far ahead, but you got a series against St. Louis on the road. 4-game series on the road against Pittsburgh yet this month. Yankees at home at the end of this month. Tampa Bay at home at the end of this month. So I think we're going to get a good first taste test of this Brewers squad. But a lot of things to be excited about just after 3 games from this past weekend. The energy from this team, the personality from this team, the mindset from this team, the philosophy from this team, and just certain players stepping up and playing some gosh darn good baseball. Give them credit to where credit's due. It's just three games into it, but god dang it. Freddie Peralta looked awesome. Bryce Terang had himself a good weekend. Christian Yelich looked good. Rhys Hoskins. Give him some credit. It was a fantastic weekend for the crew. And I hope we have some more fantastic weekends like this. Just a fun group to watch. And shout out to Pat Murphy, too, going 3-0. We talk about wild cards and keys to this team all season long, previewing this. Like, who's going to be the key pitcher to lead this team to the postseason? Who's going to be that key offensive player? Maybe the key was right in front of us the entire time. You know, for a team that's got a mixture of a bunch of young, unproven players, couple veterans here or there, maybe at the tail ends of their careers, how do you get back to the postseason? How do you win the division again? Maybe the key was right in front of us. It's Pat Murphy. Maybe it's his philosophy. Maybe it's his personality. Maybe it's his energy that could be the key to this team going back to the postseason. Man, I hope this dude has some immense success. He's a guy that you just want to root for, and you hope that he just has a boatload of success. I love listening to that guy talk, and I love listening to his mindset and how he just loves his players, and it seems like the players just love the guy back too. All right, let's take a quick break, and coming up next, we're going to debut our Packers Draft Player Preview Series where I'm going to take one or two players that have been commonly attached to the Packers and in mock drafts or from fans, and kind of do a little scouting report, kind of do a little bit of a background on them, so we all get to know these guys in case they end up being the Packers' first-round pick. So we're going to start that, but first, a word from our quick sponsors. Toyson Ford is your go-to destination for quality vehicles and exceptional service. At Toyson Ford, they have a vast selection of new and used cars, trucks, and SUVs to fit your lifestyle and budget. Their dedicated team is there to make your car buying experience a breeze. They offer financing options that suit your needs and a service center that keeps your vehicle running smoothly. Come on down to Toyson Ford and test drive your dream car today. They're located at 1000 Chippewa Crossing Boulevard in Chippewa Falls. Toyson Ford, where your road to excellence begins. Perks. I love Perks. You love Perks. We all love Perks. And one of the best perks you can find in the Chippewa Valley is Hy-Vee Perks. Hy-Vee Perks is a free and easy program for Hy-Vee shoppers. Access exclusive Perks prices, earn discounts on gas when you purchase designated products at Hy-Vee, and save more with exclusive deals, offers, and rewards. The best part, it's free to join. Not a part of Hy-Vee Perks yet? No worries. Just stop by Hy-Vee in Eau Claire to sign up. Start taking advantage of the best shopping deals in the Chippewa Valley right now with Hy-Vee and Hy-Vee Perks. It is April 1st, which means we are inching closer and closer and closer to the NFL draft. We are just a few weeks. What are we at now here? Okay, so we're April 1st. 1, 2, about 3.5 weeks away. We'll be 3 weeks from this Thursday will be the first round of the NFL draft. So with that, let's kind of do a little bit of a Packers draft prospect preview series. So every day leading up to the first round of the draft, we'll either highlight one or two guys that have been either by popularity mocked to the Packers from national mock drafts, or maybe Packers fans have talked about them for a while now. If we don't get to your guy, we will, so you don't have to hit me up with a text or a message saying, no, I don't like those guys, they got to go after this guy. It's just we're going through as much as we can, so be patient with that. But for today, we're going to take a look at two guys. We're going to take a look at two guys. One that has probably been, I would say, at least the longest, or one of the longest players that has been most popularly attached to the Packers. Cooper DeJean, defensive back safety from Iowa. And then offensive lineman Graham Barton from Duke. Let's start with Cooper. Okay, let's start with Cooper here. Cooper, Iowa. Every time I want to think of Iowa or say Iowa, I just have Brian Balaga in my mind and how he did Sunday Night Football intros. But Cooper has been a guy that I think, since draft talk really started to kick into gear, like after the Super Bowl and such, Cooper has probably been one of the most popular, if not the most popular player, like mocked to Green Bay, whether it's been from national people or even Packers fans. Obviously, a need at safety was one big reason over there. Even with the signing of Xavier McKinney over there in Green Bay, I think we all know as Packers fans that they could use another one for sure, another starting safety over there. And you factor in that Jeff Hafley, the new defensive coordinator coming in, is a defensive backs coach by trade, wants to play, press man coverage, really wants, he talked about safety and how he wants a safety to be out there. So you factor all that in, and Cooper has been a popular name attached to the green and gold. It also helps that he played college ball in Iowa, not that far from Wisconsin. And we know the Packers over the years have kind of looked at some guys from Iowa and brought them in. Mike Daniels, Micah Hyde, Lucas Van Ness last year was a first-round pick from Iowa, for crying out loud. So the Packers, and I know Brian Gutekunst has talked about this too, where Ted Thompson is always kind of like those Iowa kids. Those guys that played over at Iowa. So, heck, Josh Jackson. I know he was a player that didn't work out for Green Bay, but he was a second-round pick in 2018 for the Pack. So Packers have a history of drafting quite a few Iowa players, notably on the defensive side too. You know, when you think about Iowa, you think about tight ends and defense and such. But in Green Bay's case, they've really kind of focused on the defensive side over there when it comes to their Iowa players. So what are the scouts saying? What are the draft experts saying about these players, and what are they saying about Cooper? One of the many things that you keep hearing about Cooper is just his competitiveness, his ball skills, his flexibility to play in a defense. He can play corner. He can play safety back out there. He's got experience at both, that versatility. And I think that speaks volumes to a lot of Packers fans when you talk about that versatility of a defensive back that can play safety but also corner, especially from everything that we've heard about Jeff Hafley and the Jeff Hafley defense. So you bring that in. You look at, and I'm sure a lot of us probably remember seeing him play over the years at Iowa, whether it was the Badgers playing against them, or maybe you're an Iowa Hawkeye fan and you know you've gotten used to seeing him play from the last few years here. But he's kind of that player that just seems like you want that guy on your team, like he's a coach's dream. This was one of the things that was mentioned about him on his draft profile from an AFC scout. He's quiet and humble. He was always the best at his high school, and he has a baked-in confidence that you can't coach. He also gives you a little bit in the return game if you want to throw that in there, you know, punt returner and such. And heck, he even played some gunner on special teams. So he's got these great instincts, this versatility that he can bring to a defense. Whether it's playing corner, playing a back end safety there. And one of the things I was reading over the weekend too, as we were getting ready for this, one concern that some scouts had out there about him was, is he a guy? Is he a player that, you know, you got to put him in that right position, in that right defense, to really get the most out of him. Because if he plays corner, he's more of a zone corner. And from what we've heard from Jeff Hafley, he likes man, and he wants to be aggressive with his corners. So even though he has that versatility of playing corner and playing safety, and he's got that experience of playing corner, could he succeed playing corner in this style of defense for Green Bay? Now, maybe the other point to this too is like, well, he wouldn't be a full-time corner. He would maybe just have to play it in certain packages. And that's fair. That's fair. You know, it's kind of giving me maybe some flashbacks. I'm not comparing him to this type of career that he's going to have. But kind of like maybe a Woodson, Charles Woodson at the back end of his career, played safety, played a little corner. I mean, he was the definition of the title, just defensive back, where you weren't pigeonholing a guy into a corner or safety. Kind of like even maybe former Hawkeye Micah Hyde. Safety, corner, experience in both. You just got to figure out where he's best suited for the defense. And I think if he's a draft pick for Green Bay, he's better suited as a safety, in my opinion. Because if Jeff Hafley wants to come in and be aggressive with his corners and play that man-to-man type of ball with his corners, sure, I'm sure you could throw him in there a few times, and it's going to be incredibly valuable to bring his coverage skills over and have that versatility. But I think he's best suited to play safety in this style of defense. I know he's coming off of an injury, broken fibula? Yeah, broken fibula. But everything you hear about him, he's kind of that That guy, that type of player you just want on your roster. That type of player you want, you want on your defense. You can YouTube it. You can YouTube his highlights, some of the plays. I mean, every draft prospect out there now, heck, even high school, college, pro, whatever, you can YouTube highlights of these guys, and you're going to see some of the plays that he makes out there. And when you look at the mock drafts, when it comes to Cooper, I've seen him go as high as maybe just inside the 20, late teens, early 20s, where he's not there when Green Bay picks. And I've seen him there when Green Bay is available. And I've seen him where, in some mock drafts, Green Bay bypasses him. So he potentially could be there. Will he be the pick for Green Bay? I mean, we won't know until, 3.5 weeks here. But I think he fits in this style of defense. I think he fits a need, especially right now when you look at the safety depth with the Packers. Yes, you just spent a boatload of money on Xavier McKinney. After that, who is it? You got Anthony Johnson Jr., who I like, but, I mean, is he ready to come in? And I mean, he's a 7th-rounder from last year. Again, Iowa State, another state of Iowa player. But you still need some depth over there. And the fact that he can help out in special teams, he gives you that versatility in the back end. He's kind of, I don't know, he gives me a lot of reminders of Micah Hyde. And dare I say, without the corner experience, dare I say a little Jimmy Leonard-esque type of thing. So, if he's the pick, I wouldn't be upset. Let's go to the offensive side of things. Let's go with an offensive lineman now. Graham Barton. Kid from Duke. Depending on where you look him up, you've seen him listed as guard. You've seen him listed as center. This is a guy, though, that has experience playing at different positions across the NFL. And as we know, any Packers fan knows, when it comes to offensive line versatility, you skyrocket up the Packers draft boards. He started in 2021, started all 12 games at left tackle. 2022, first team all ACC, started all 13 games at left tackle. 2023, first team all ACC, started 9 games at left tackle. And then in 2020, he actually started his collegiate career 5 starts at center. So you've got the experience at center. You've got the experience at tackle. A lot of NFL peeps think he is more suited to play the guard role at that next level. So, I mean, you got a guy that's got that versatility that just screams Green Bay. And that's why you see him mocked a lot to the Packers in that first round, back into that first round, sometimes even early second round if you're doing a little mock draft simulator and he happens to still be there. If he's the pick for Green Bay in that back end of that first round, I'd be okay with this too. Again, you're providing some versatility. Is it kind of like Zach Tom-esque, where, and this guy's bigger than Zach Tom. He's a little bit bigger than Zach Tom. But, Zach Tom came in as a rookie at Wake Forest. Center is at his best position. Well, now he's the right tackle, but he was getting starts at guard. Heck, he was even playing some left tackle, right? We saw Elton Jenkins doing the same thing, for crying out loud. He played some center in the NFL. They tried putting him at left tackle, right tackle. They tried making him a right tackle, back at guard now. Now you got another guy that gives you that position flexibility on this offensive line. An offensive line that has a need at guard, potentially has a need at center for next year. Josh Myers entering his final year. And at least last year they gave him a little competition with Zach Tom in preseason and training camp. And left tackle, Is Walker going to be the guy? Is he the long-term solution over there? Or do they want to give him another year? But by drafting a guy like Barton, you put him in there, who's got a ton of snaps at left tackle. You at least provide a little bit of depth over there. May not be best suited to play left tackle in the NFL, but at least you got a guy that's got experience over there. I'm not doing my mock yet, but I'll tell you what, this guy's on my short list for a first-round pick, for the first-round selection. I love the versatility he brings. He just screams. He just screams like that's a Packer player. That's a guy. And one of the things that on his draft profile from a scout says, so much fun to watch a lineman with that kind of consistency and effort on every play. He's the same player in every game. One nugget I really liked about him, too, when I was looking at the stuff last night, highly capable in the screen game. He's great at second-level climber. Toughness, athleticism. That just screams like, you're putting this in your mind now, right? Okay. Second level. Really good at getting at that second level. Screen game. Oh. Then we're hearing that, hey, Josh Jacobs might be involved, or they want to get him more involved in the passing game. It's like, oh, wait a minute now. Now you're starting to connect some of these dots. You got a guy that can get to that second level, can help you out in the screen game. You're bringing in Jacobs, getting him more involved in the passing game. It just, come on now. It just fits. So, if he is the pick by Green Bay, maybe he comes in, maybe he's the starting guard, fills in for John Runyon, or maybe he has a battle with Sean Ryan. Does he come in and have a battle with Josh Myers for starting center? Maybe, it could be one of those situations where he comes in, starting guard this year, but then the following year, maybe he is the next starting center when Josh Myers leaves via free agency. Because I think it's fair to say Josh Myers has not really played up to what they had hoped he would be at that center position. And I think it gets highlighted a lot by Creed Humphrey, who was the pick right after him, and the success he's having with Kansas City. So there's a very good chance Green Bay is going to be looking at upgrading their center spot, whether it's going to be this year or maybe next year. And, he's going to be not a first-round pick, but we might as well throw his name in there. Another guy that could be that option is Tanner Bortolini from Wisconsin, who just blew out the doors with his combine testing that I think helped move him up at least a round, maybe even a couple in the drafts. And where he tested out is like a bunch of check marks that the Packers look at for all their players, the RAS scoring. But Graham Barton, both these guys, Graham and Cooper, just scream like, oh, those are guys that you can just easily picture in green and yellow playing at a Lambeau Field. They're two guys that just, they fit that. You got an offensive lineman who can play every single position. You got a defensive back. In the back end, you need a safety, but he gives you some versatility there. Gives me impressions, gives me reminders of a Micah Hyde. These two guys, if somehow they were even like the first two picks, like maybe Graham falls a little bit. I don't know. Maybe he falls a little bit and he's there in the second. They get Cooper in the first. Gosh, I'd be the most excited boy in the state of Wisconsin probably, if somehow they came away with both these guys. But they just scream like they're typical Packers picks. I got to imagine these two guys, Cooper and Graham, are clearly towards the top of that board for Green Bay. that these are two guys that they've put a lot of work into, scouting, looking into, backgrounds, all that stuff. They scream Packer picks. And that's why you see them talked a lot about by Packers fans. When Packers fans are doing their mock drafts, you see those guys are on there. When you look at the national mocks, you see those guys attached as a Packer pick. They fit needs, but they fit what the Packers want to do. All right, that is going to do it for us on this episode of the Man Cave Podcast. As always, big thanks to all of you for tuning in and listening and subscribing and giving us positive reviews and all that good stuff. Big thanks. Tip of the cap to you all for taking some time and listening to this episode and all the other episodes of the Man Cave Podcast. I'm Dan Casper, and until next time, I'll talk to you on the next episode of the Man Cave Podcast.